saw Billy Neal Jr. and his father, Billy Sr., at the river the night of the murders. So you find out from them what they were doing, but what did they say they were doing at the river that night?
Come to find out through the investigation, witnesses had seen them. This would have been about 3 to 4 hours before the murders. Ran into them down there standing in the dark near where we later recovered this evidence. And when confronted about why they were down there, they said they were drowning kittens and just go away.
Well, that makes them nicer people than the drowning kittens.
The lie is bad enough, but
Right.
years later when you get the confession, the reality is even worse. Here's Billy Neal's confession.
So I took my gloves off because they have blood all over them. And I threw them in the jacket with my knife. And I threw them in the river. They didn't go that far though. And then I grabbed my dad's knife and I threw that in the river too.
Interesting, you recovered the knife. We hear all about DNA and everything else. Did the knife have DNA evidence on it? Was that the point you could link it?
Ultimately, no.
So you got the weapon, but you don't have anything to link it?
Was it wiped clean or just with the water? Or?
Just being in the water for hours, there wasn't enough usable material to test on the knife, or the jacket for that matter.
What's incredible is how shoelaces actually help lead the police to the murder. More in just a second.
For the first time, Ellen is hearing the confession of her son, a son who admits to, in essence, murdering 3 people, stabbing 143 times, but it was a crime that was difficult to solve. And Detective Eric Anderson is here. There were no detectives at the time you started this case. You were
right.
fresh on the job, and you're dealing with this case, and you found a knife in the water, and there's nothing on the knife. Now you have to move forward. You stumble across something else in the water.
Right, almost literally stumbled across it. I was there. We'd returned to this river location where we had found the knife in the jacket with divers, because the water's about 34 degrees and it's rushing quickly, and we needed qualified, trained divers to get down in there and see what we might find. So I don't know how to do any of that stuff, so I kind of walked around the bank and the shore there and see what else I might find. I stumble into a plastic bag and just look a little closer, and there's a pair of shoes in it. At first glance, appeared that the shoes had probably been left there from the summertime, and some kid had been swimming there. And look closer, and there are dark red blotches all over the laces. And at first, what was probably either hoax evidence or too good to be true, if this was somehow related to the case, I'm taking it. And I did, and I sent it to the lab.
And it wasn't hoax, it was blood. And this is your son, actually, Ellen, talking about trying to get rid of his shoes on the night of the murder.
And I seen a little bag hanging on a bush. So I got a bag and they had blood on my shoes, so I took my shoes off and threw them in the bag. And I tried to throw the bag out there in the river, but I think I threw it too high and it landed on the bank. And I didn't have on no shoes, so I couldn't go out there and get my shoes and throw them out in the river. So I went home.
Did the blood on the shoes, who did it belong to? You send this away to the FBI in the lab. Did you figure out who it belonged to? Yeah,
the blood that had dropped from above onto the laces belonged to the 2 victims in the apartment, Carlos Mendoza and Diana Gomez, which we drew the reasonable conclusion that whoever had been wearing those shoes was actually partaking in the murder in order for the blood to fall in that way.
So whose shoes were they?
That was the other piece of the puzzle that we needed to solve.
And inside the shoes were some blood?
Right. Through
as well?
Some further testing, we eventually determined that there was a testable amount of DNA inside the shoe that could identify the wearer of the shoe. And meanwhile, through months of waiting for the lab work to be done, we're also doing our side investigation, and we're focusing on the Neals at this time.
In fact, I want to go to Jackie in the audience. Jackie, you had a question?
Yes. You talk about the father, and he's using his father's knife. What was the role of your husband and his father, and what punishment did he receive?
My ex-husband?
Yes.
I have a lot of blame on my ex-husband. I feel that Well, I put a lot of blame on my ex-husband, and
What role did he play?
he got life also. They got the same sentence. I think senior got 2 years less. One got 385, one got 383 years. Is that what it was?
But did he initiate this, or what do you know about his part in this?
For the information that I have and what I've heard from the investigators, it was a drug deal that went bad, and the father was the one who initially had the knife.
So he was dealing drugs and with your son?
I don't know if, I think those were drug dealers at that house. I think they were both on drugs, but yes, he was.
Now, eventually, you got the shoes with the blood inside. You need to find the match. You get some blood from your ex-husband, senior, correct?
Yes.
Is there a match?
51%, right?
There was a half match as far as the DNA is
So
concerned.
what does that mean, a half match? So it's not him,
That
but
means that it's 50% similar genetically
So it was
to the
family
blood that
member.
was in the shoe.
so
Which
reasonable
showed us
expectation.
It had to be a very close family member.
Member.
Lo and behold, we're already looking at his son
Son.
as the prime suspect. So our target was now, let's get blood from Junior.
When we come back, more on the motive and Billy Jr.'s confession in its entirety. There's blood on sneakers, and Detective Anderson realizes it probably belongs to someone in the Neal family, and you confront Billy Jr. with this evidence. Does he break down?
Eventually, the first time we confronted him was with a search warrant to pull the blood. And knowing that we were pulling his blood, knowing that this could ultimately link him to this crime, he still deny. And then when we got the results back from that, we had our ace in the hole. It matched. We went back, we found him again, and we confronted him. And he broke down, and he confessed.
And this is the confession.
And we should mention, you're his mom, not seen this confession, but you wanted to see it, and so we're showing the confession now.
In its entirety.
So my dad stuck him. And when he stuck him, I turned at the same time and grabbed the knife off the counter. And I went towards Mendoza, Carlos Mendoza, and I started stabbing him. And then I don't know what happened to my dad or Juan after that because I was busy stabbing Carlos. And then I went from there to the bedroom because I felt something hit me in the back. And so I turned around, I could see that at first, and then that's when Carlos rushed me. And the door's right here, there's a table right here, and then there's the bed is right next to the end table. So when he rushed me, I moved to the side kind of a little bit, and he knocked me over, my back went over I went over the little nightstand, and then I came up stabbing, trying to stab somebody. I was stabbing, I think it was Deanna. I heard somebody screaming real close to my ear. I think I was stabbing Deanna then. And then so I stopped and I went to find Carlos. He was over by the window. I started stabbing him again. And we went from the bedroom back out to the living room. And somebody was beating on the door, so I reached over and unlocked the door. My dad came in, and that's when Deanna was in the bathroom screaming. And my dad ran in the bathroom, and when he came out, she wasn't screaming no more. And at that time, I was still stabbing Carlos, my knife bent, and I bent my knife back. And I keep stabbing him, and my knife bent again, and I bent it back, and I kept stabbing him some more. And then my knife broke on me, so I didn't have my knife to stab him. And at that time, my dad had grabbed him and slit his throat, and that was it. I went and I looked in the bathroom, I see Deanna dead on the floor, and I came out and left the apartment.
Watching this tape, I know it's making you emotional, but is it not interesting to you how your son is so matter of fact?
Yeah.
There's no emotion.
He was on 4 different medications at the time of his confession also, so I'm sure that's why he was so calm.
Tough, though, for Mom to watch, just tough. Deb, in our audience with a question. Deb?
Are you able to have a relationship with your son now? And if you don't, would you like one?
I have a relationship with my son. He calls me once a month, and I send him money when I can. And he calls me on the holidays, and I send him a care package
When's the last time you talked to him?
the other day.
What did he say when he found out you were going to come forward and talk about this for the first time?
He wasn't very happy that this was going to be aired, but it was already going to be aired. So he didn't tell me not to do it, because I wouldn't have done it if he asked me not to, but it was already going to be aired.
Scott's got an interesting question. Scott?
Was there any question that you would forgive him? I mean, this was so much that happened, and did you turn from him?
Oh, yes. I had collect blocking on my phone and everything. He couldn't even call me. But, you know, time, he's my son. No matter what, I love him. He's my son.
When you hear this confession, you had wanted to hear it from him. You'd wanted him to tell you the details. But you said before the show, you hope this helps you heal. Do you feel a difference by hearing now what happened that night? Or do you think it's just opening it all up again?
I don't know. I'm too scared right now to know. My heart's fluttering. I don't know yet.
A lot you got to go through to process this.
I don't know yet.
Speaking of scared, he's murdered 3 people, been involved in it. There's definitely a question of the death penalty, and the prosecutor, David Freefry, is here. You were thinking of approaching with the death penalty. What happened? What went on with that?
Well, actually, in the state of Washington, there's a period where you have to do mitigation. So the investigators that had spoken to Junior's mom had submitted to us a 36-page mitigation package, and I went through it from beginning to end. And as a prosecutor, I'm against. I don't philosophically believe in the death penalty. My boss, Jim Haggerty, did. He was the one that made the ultimate decision. So it was really difficult for me because I went to him, and as far as I was concerned, there were no mitigating factors that would allow us to say, okay, let's plead it out, just a life without possibility of parole. So we went into the initial meeting, the sit-down. We were going to go ahead with the death penalty, and they offered to plead him out to, I believe it was 1 count of aggravated and 1 count of felony murder, just be a first degree.
So he got life in prison and didn't get the death penalty. And hadn't you initially actually disagreed with that? What did you think your son deserved for these crimes?
I don't want to tell you. I'm not going to answer that question.
You okay now, though, with what happened, what the sentence is?
No, I am.
Now you are. Okay. I hope this helps you find closure. And congratulations to you on incredible detective work. You're not a rookie anymore after witnessing this kind of crime. Thank you both for being here and talking to us today.
We'll be right back.
Fisher Communications.